Hello and welcome back to our channel. In today's video, I'll explain a very important topic, human psychological needs. This topic is important because we are unhappy mainly because of unsatisfied needs. But do you know exactly what you need and why you need it? Let's dive in and explore this topic together. A German philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer, in his book The World as Will and Representation, described a fundamental law of nature that drives every living being to want to live. From bacteria and viruses to plants, animals, and humans, we all want to live, to preserve our lives and reproduce. Schopenhauer called this force the will to live. At first, it may seem that the will to live is a voluntary choice, but in reality, it's a powerful biological law of nature, like gravity, that forces us to want to live. For example, remember the time when you started having sexual desires. Did you choose to have them? No, you were programmed to have them. Similarly, we don't choose to want food, water, or air. But if, for example, we try to hold our breath, we will quickly feel the compulsion to take another breath. That's the will to live in action. Schopenhauer's ideas influenced many great thinkers like Darwin, Einstein, and Schrödinger, and sparked further research into how the will to live relates to human psychology. One of the most influential models of human needs comes from Abraham Maslow, who has organized these needs into a hierarchy. Maslow's hierarchy is often illustrated as a pyramid, with more fundamental needs at the base of the pyramid and more advanced ones at the higher levels. The overarching purpose of the whole pyramid is to preserve life. Let's have a closer look. Physiological needs are at the base of the hierarchy. They include needs for food, water, heat, shelter, and sleep. These needs are necessary for the survival of our body. They must be satisfied before advancing to higher-level needs. Without satisfying them, it's difficult to focus on anything else. Once our basic needs are met, we seek security and stability, not only physical safety, but also assurance that our resources, like food and shelter, will remain available in the future. After physiological and safety needs are fulfilled, we move to the third level, which is sexual and interpersonal. If you can take care of yourself and satisfy your own physiological and safety needs, it means that now you are ready to procreate and take care of your children's needs. You are ready to start a family. That is why sexual needs are at the third level and start after a certain age. This level is not purely sexual. It also involves a need for belonging to a social group. Being a part of a group is crucial, regardless of whether it is work, friends, community, or family. Humans need to feel connected with other people because being a member of a group increases the chances of survival. Human beings are social animals. We survive and thrive in communities. For example, it is easier to hunt and search for food in a team. At the dawn of humanity, being a part of a group was a matter of life and death. To be accepted by the group, your membership must be useful to others. For example, being helpful and kind, having valuable skills or knowledge, can make you a valuable member. Next is the need for esteem. Once you are accepted by the group, you want to get a higher position in the social hierarchy. The need for esteem may include the desire for a higher status, recognition, and power. It may also include a need for making your own choices and decisions, and not being subordinate to someone else. Having a higher status in a social hierarchy is useful for survival because, for example, in times of food scarcity, those who have higher social status are privileged. To get a higher position in the group, you have to become less dependent on others, but at the same time, develop skills or knowledge that make others dependent on you. At the next level are cognitive needs. Cognitive needs force you to seek meaning, purpose, and comprehension of simple things, as well as complex concepts such as the meaning of life itself. Cognitive need urges us to learn and attain knowledge, to think and explore relationships and associations between different pieces of information. The needs below this level can be observed in other animals. But starting from the cognitive level, the rest of the pyramid is specific only to humans. Next are aesthetical and ethical needs. To understand the connection between aesthetics and ethics, Remember the feeling when you hear beautiful music. The music is beautiful when its notes are connected harmoniously. Harmony means agreement. Thus, ethical and aesthetical needs urge us to seek harmony, justice, and eliminate conflicts and contradictions in our external as well as internal life. Another higher-level need is the need for self-actualization, which means realization of one's full potential. Maslow describes this as the desire to accomplish everything that one can, to become the most that one can be. People may have a strong desire to improve personally or professionally. For example, one might want to become a better artist, scientist, citizen, or a better person. This need also motivates us to improve our external world. For example, to optimize and improve the efficiency of a certain process, to innovate. In other words, at this level, we want to improve ourselves and improve the environment that we live in. Finally, at the highest level is the need for self-transcendence, also known as a spiritual need. According to Maslow, one finds the fullest realization in giving oneself to something beyond oneself, for example, in altruism, serving others. Once you have satisfied all your personal needs, you transcend your ego and start thinking and caring about the needs of other people, your community, nation, or all humanity and living beings. It should be noted that the pyramid is not the same for each individual. It is not a rigid, linear process. Individuals can have various needs at the same time or shift between levels. Progression to a higher level does not free you from the lower-level needs. You would still need to satisfy your physiological and safety needs even after reaching the top of the pyramid. The pyramid of needs was designed by nature to promote survival and progression of life. So, if you are trying to understand the purpose of your life, nature has already given you the answer. The purpose of life is life itself. Your purpose is to stay alive, procreate, take care of your family, and improve your own life as well as the lives of other people. Nature has invented a very clever system. Each level of the pyramid promotes life. Even if you have satisfied all of your own needs, at the top of the pyramid, you start thinking about the needs of other living beings and help them to survive and improve. But how does nature force us to climb the pyramid? It has invented another tool, emotions. The word emotion translates from Latin as to move out or to stir up. Positive emotions, like joy, love, and pride, reward us when we satisfy our needs. Negative emotions, like sadness, anxiety, and frustration, signal unmet needs. Everything that is helpful for survival and promotes life, nature has linked with pleasant emotions. For example, eating food, having sex, winning a competition, or being respected by others brings positive emotions. On the contrary, being hungry, lonely, losing a competition, or having low social status is associated with negative emotions. Emotions were designed by nature to direct and govern animals. Animals do not know what they must do to survive. For example, a cow does not eat grass because it knows that food is necessary for survival. Eating causes pleasant feelings, whereas hunger is unpleasant. Thus, animals can survive only by following their emotions, by seeking positive emotions and avoiding negative ones. Unlike other animals, humans have more needs, and our higher-level needs are difficult to satisfy. That is why humans are more prone to unhappiness and emotional disorders compared to other animals. Unlike other animals, due to more advanced cognitive abilities, we have become more skillful at chasing positive and avoiding negative emotions, which is not always a good thing. As you remember, by nature's design, positive and negative emotions were meant to be used only as tools to motivate us to satisfy our needs. Unfortunately, most of us do not realize that emotions are just secondary signals that tell us about the state of our needs. Instead, we tend to see emotions as ends rather than means. Instead of focusing on our needs, we suppress negative emotions and boost positive emotions using legal and illegal drugs, alcohol, or by distracting ourselves. However, very often the root cause of a negative emotional state is a dissatisfaction of a higher level need. For example, imagine a person who has reached the third level of the pyramid. He has managed to satisfy his physiological, safety, and interpersonal needs. He has a nice family, and he is financially secure. But at some point in life, he started feeling that his job was boring and meaningless, and he did not like being subordinate to his bosses. He wanted to be more independent, do something meaningful, and grow personally and professionally. In other words, his higher-level needs were not met. He felt that something was lacking. He was not enjoying his life anymore, but he was unaware of his higher-level needs. So, instead of changing his job and trying to satisfy his needs, he focused on emotions and decided to boost positive emotions by using alcohol and drugs. Unfortunately, this strategy does not address the root cause of emotions. Such consumerist attitude to emotions is not the right approach to life. Instead, he should have focused on addressing his needs. The purpose of life is not to be positive all the time and enjoy it. Negative emotions are also important. They exist for a reason. They motivate us to grow. Another common mistake that humans make is that they want permanent happiness, which is impossible. As we progress in life and satisfy one level of needs, new needs will arise, and setbacks often force us to revisit earlier levels. Imagine a hypothetical person who lost all his money, job, became homeless, and his family and friends abandoned him. Basically, he found himself at the bottom of the pyramid. In this case, his negative emotional state is not something pathological that requires treatment with antidepressants. It is a normal reaction to life circumstances. Suppression of these negative emotions with legal and illegal drugs will not solve the problem and, in fact, would be countereffective, as suppression of emotions would reduce motivation. Remember that emotion translates as to stir up. The correct way to improve his emotional state would be to start climbing the pyramid again. Luckily, he picked the right approach. He was on the streets, hungry, and had nowhere to go. But then he was able to find a temporary accommodation for homeless people and got some food from the charity. For a moment, he was pleased and content, but then he started worrying about how to find food and shelter for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. In other words, he had transitioned to the next level of the pyramid. He managed to find a new job with a decent salary that allowed him to rent a house. Again, for a couple of months, he was very happy. But once safety was reached, the interpersonal needs appeared. He started feeling lonely and negative. Then he found a nice girl at work, established a romantic relationship, and started a new family. He was happy for a couple of months, but then he started thinking about how to earn more money, how to become more independent, escape the 9-to-5 job, and so on. It means he had transitioned to the esteem level of the pyramid. He started a new business, became very successful and wealthy, but after some time, he started losing interest in making money. He was wondering, what is the purpose of life? That is a cognitive level. And this cycle of happiness and unhappiness continued. The main idea is that some kind of need is always present. Therefore, negative emotions and some level of discontent and suffering resulting from dissatisfaction of the needs are inevitable and a part of being a human. And it cannot be otherwise. Without negative emotions, we would not move forward. If it is impossible to stop needing something and eliminate suffering completely, the only thing we can try to do is to manage our needs and emotions with wisdom. Just like we control our need for food when we are on a diet, in a similar way, we can control our other needs. I will explain how to do that in more detail in future videos. In the meantime, here is some general advice. First of all, you have to realize that emotions are secondary to our needs. To manage your emotions, you have to manage your needs. To do that, you have to align your goals with nature's idea. Nature does not want you to be happy and positive all the time. Nature wants you to live, procreate, improve your life, and help others. To stir you up, to urge you to climb the pyramid, negative emotions are as necessary as positive ones. So, you have to accept negative emotions, and instead of suppressing or avoiding them, try to understand what unmet needs are causing them. Next, determine the correct goals and methods to satisfy your needs and make sure that they do not contradict different categories of needs. For example, if your higher social status is achieved not by being helpful and useful to others, but by being violent and aggressive, although it satisfies your need for esteem, it also conflicts with your ethical and interpersonal needs. Another example is an abusive relationship. If your partner satisfies your sexual needs, provides you and your children financially, but at the same time, he or she is emotionally, verbally, and physically abusive, being in such a relationship does not satisfy interpersonal and esteem needs. Such conflicting situations, when satisfaction of one need leads to dissatisfaction of another need, will always result in a negative emotional state. You have to resolve such contradictions. Be intentional and purposeful when setting goals. Your goals should be compliant with nature's goals. If you failed at achieving a specific goal, revisit the goal or the strategy, but don't give up trying to satisfy the need. For example, if you wanted to establish a romantic relationship with a specific person, but he or she did not like you, it does not mean that you have to be alone for the rest of your life and stop trying to satisfy your interpersonal need. Doing so will only increase your negative emotions. You have to find another goal, another person, and try again. And finally, don't focus on only one category of needs. Look at the pyramid, think carefully, and set specific achievable goals within each category of the pyramid, and start working on them methodically. Remember that nature has invented needs and emotions for a reason. Keep your goals in line with nature's plan, and you will be fine. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope this video helps you better understand your own needs and how to manage them. If you found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below.